Hello and welcome to another tutorial from MOO ICT. In this tutorial we're going to be making a space shooter game. Let's take a look at what this game does. So you have a player that you can control with the arrow keys. I can shoot with the space key. I have enemies coming down towards the player. I can shoot at them, and if you get touched by one of the enemies, or if the enemy goes past, then you get damage. So if I shoot about say 5 enemies the game, they will speed up and they'll spawn a lot more. Right, so if I go and shoot a few more, okay, now if I just let them go and get the damage up to 100, I will get a message box that says the game's over, and then if I click OK, the game will restart as well. This is going to be a fun tutorial to go through. Get started on making a new project in Visual Studio. Right, so in this window, just click on create a new project. I'm going to choose the WPF app.NET framework. Click next. Name this project Space Battle Shooter WPF MOO ICT. Click create. Okay, so this is the empty layout of the project. First thing what we need to do is download the game assets that we need from the link below. So this will take you to the MOO ICT website page for this tutorial. You also have access to the written tutorial here, but we're going to go through everything in this video. So just download the game assets that we need. You have got 5 different enemies, a player and a background image. Once you have them downloaded, make sure you extract the zip file, and if you go to the Solutions Explorer, right click on the project name, click on add, click on new folder. Let's give a name called images. Right click on the images folder here, click on add existing item. Okay, navigate to your downloads, then you should be able to see all the project files here. If you can't see it, just pick the images file from the drop down here, then all of them should be visible. So select all and click on add. Okay, so you'll see that all the images would be added to the project. Okay, then let's start working on the project now. So I'm just going to move that up and zoom out a little bit so I can see the code and the preview better. First, let's go change the title to Space Battle Shooter Game MOO ICT. Okay, change the height to 615 and change the width to 540. So it's a bit more like this. We're going to change the grid into a canvas. First thing is give the canvas a name called My Canvas. Set focusable to true. Let's give this one a background black. We're going to give you 2 different events, so one for key down and one for key up. So say key down, and in this one say on key down like so, and key up. So again on key up. That's the names of both of these events. We're going to be adding them to the C# a little bit later on. So first what we're going to need is we're going to need a rectangle for the player. So let's go create a new rectangle here. Name this one player. Set the height to 50. Set width to 60. That's the dimensions of the image that we are going to use in this game. I'm going to fill off yellow for now. We're going to import the picture on it later on. Okay, if I end this tag now, the player character gets added over there. Just drag and drop it right here. So a bit above would be good, I think. Because we don't want it to be right at the border, so we want to see some of the enemies going past. So now let's make 2 labels for this game. So the first one is going to be called score text, capital T, content. Let's just show that it's score 0. Font size, let's set it to 18. Font weight can be bold. Foreground is going to be white. Okay, so the score text gets added over there. Just going to duplicate this line, select the line and press Ctrl D. And this one is going to be called damage text. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're just going to drag this one over to say just about here. Okay, so make sure you leave some space, because once the numbers start changing, the numbers are going to go off screen. So if you leave it there, that's perfectly fine. start adding the events from these two. So just right click on them, click on go to definition, and that would add the key down event to there. Right click on the key up event, go to definition, that would add the key up event there as well. First thing we need here is we need to import the namespace. So say system.windows threading. So we need the dispatcher timer from the threading namespace here. So without this we can't access the dispatcher timer. Okay, with the namespace added, let's go and add a custom function that we're going to need. So private void make enemies. It's basically going to make new enemies for us to play with in the game. Okay, now let's go add the variables. First one we're going to need is a dispatcher timer. Let's call this one game timer. New dispatcher timer there. So that would create a new dispatcher timer for us. And a boolean for move left and move right. We need a list of rectangles because we need to create and destroy the bullets and the enemies. So say item remover. New list of rectangles there. No, need a random number generator as well. Make a few integers. So let's say first one is enemy sprite counter and enemy counter to be 100 and player speed, put that to 10, limit set to 50, score 0, damage is going to be 0 as well, and enemy speed set to 10. I think the last one we need is a rect for the player hitbox. So now let's go to player hitbox. After that, let's set up the game timer and load up the images that we need for this game. So inside the public main window constructor, because this is what runs first, so right under this initialize component line, let's make it some space, and then we're just going to add our own instructions to here. So let's say game timer dot interval time span dot from milliseconds. So we want it to run about 20 milliseconds, right? So that's fine. Game timer dot tick, so plus equals to, let's call it game loop. Okay, and then we're just going to start the timer here. Okay, we also need to bring the main canvas to focus. So say my canvas dot focus, so that way it actually listens for the key down and key up events. We're going to set up the main background for the canvas. And let's make a new image brush. This will be G for background. There's new image brush. So dot image source equals new bitmap image. Application 3 commas, and then you have access to the images there. So it's going to be the purple.png. Okay, so the thing that we want to do to this background is we want to make sure that it tiles, so it doesn't just show one part of the background, it kind of goes and repeats itself inside of the canvas. So we can see multiple of these star effects on the canvas as we play it. Inside the image brush, what we're going to say is tile mode equals tile mode dot tile. Okay, we also need to set up a viewport for the tile mode. So say viewport equals new rect. Okay, so this is basically the size of the tile that we need to do. So the first one is the top and the bottom location. So we go to 0, 0. Right, now we need to set up the height and the width. So the height and the width that we want is 0.15 by 0.15. Just put 0 in front of it as well. safe measure. Okay, so that's the height and the width of the background image. Then let's go to the viewport units. Okay, so brush mapping mode, the relative to bounding box. So whichever bounding box is inside of it needs to fill up that box. Okay, so now we can say my canvas dot background is equals to bg. Okay, so obviously we can't run this just yet because we haven't added the game loop. So if you just highlight over there and say go to potential fixes, just click on the first fix and then it will add the event here. We don't need this line, so we can delete that. Okay, so right now the canvas looks like this. So if I go and start the game now, so as you can see, it's added the background, not just added the background once, it actually looped through it and added it multiple times, and it actually scales with the bounding box. Okay, it's pretty cool. It's good to know that we can do stuff like this inside of the canvas. All right, so now we need to do another image brush for the player. Image brush, let's say call this one play image. Okay, image source equals new bitmap image, new URI. Once again, we go to the pack, application, 3 commas, images, and then we can access the player.png file from there. Okay, once that's been set up, I can say player.fill equals player image. So if I go and start it up again, I should be able to see the player image now been set properly. Okay, so now let's do the key down and key up events. So the key down event, we'll say if e.key consequence key dot left, now left control, set move left to true. Also we can check e.key dot right, then move right to true. Okay, so once the key is pressed, we're going to move either one of these booleans to true, and we're just going to copy and paste that into the keys up function, and then once the keys are released, we're going to set them back to false. We also need to shoot with the spacebar, so let's say e.key equals e dot space. So when the spacebar is pressed, we don't want the bullet to spawn then, but when the spacebar is released, we want it to spawn, and that's why we're doing it inside of the on key up event. Let's make a new rectangle for the bullet. Say rectangle, let's call this one new bullet equals new rectangle here. So we can give the properties directly inside of this rectangle class. So it's going to have a tag called bullet. Okay, let's set the height to 20, put the width to 5, give it a fill equals brushes dot white, stroke is going to be brushes dot red. Okay, so it'll have a red stroke around it, but it'll have the background as white. Okay, outside of this part, now we can set up the left and top position of this bullet. So canvas dot set left. So we're going to say new bullet here, and then I guess get the canvas dot get left of the player. Yeah, right. Plus player dot width divided by 2. So it's going to be placed right in the middle of where the player is. Okay. As I set top. I'll set the top position of the new bullet. Get top. So get the top position of the player. And it's going to be minus new bullet dot height. Okay, so it's going to be placed right on top of the player there. I'll just add the bullet to the screen. New bullet. Right, so when every time the spacebar is released, it's going to do all of these. So we can actually test it out now if you want to see if the bullets are being spawned on there. So if I press the spacebar, as you can see, it's just spawned one there. I can't move left and right here because we haven't put the logic inside the game loop, but as you can see, we can actually place a bullet. Now let's work on the make enemies function. Let's make some space inside of here. We're going to make a new image brush called enemy sprite. Image brush, and this one's going to load up all the images that we have downloaded from the website and import it into this project. So let's go and say enemy sprite counter equals to rand.next. So we're going to load up a random number between 1 and 5 inside of this sprite counter here. Depending on what number shows up, we'll be able to change that an image inside of this image brush. Okay, so let's do a switch statement here. Enemy sprite counter right here. Okay, so we change that to case 1. So if the number that's generated from the random number here is 1, then we can say enemy sprite image source new bitmap image, a new URI here. We've done this one before. Okay, let's go to pack. Pack application images and then 1.png. Okay, so we just copy and paste that a couple of times. Okay, and then what we need to do is change the cases here. So if it's case 2, change that one to 2. It's case 3, change that to 3. It's case 4, change that to 4. It's case 5, change that to 5. Okay, so depending on what number is generated here, we're able to assign any image to this image sprite. Depending on the number that's generated here, we're able to assign an image to the enemy sprite. So now let's make a new rectangle for the enemy. So say rectangle here, call it new enemy. I'm gonna make a new rectangle, do a semicolon there. So first thing we're gonna need is a tag, so we know what it is. Call this one enemy, comma. We need the height for the enemy, which is 50. We need the width for the enemy. I think most of the sprites go 56 to 60, so we're gonna 6 to 56. Okay, let's do the fill right now. So fill is going to be the enemy sprite. Okay, right, so that's the rectangle that's going to be assigned when the new enemies are created. Let's do the top and left position for the enemy. So let's do set top to new enemy maybe -100. So we want it to spawn off canvas first. Okay, canvas does set left to new enemy, and now we're just going to randomly position it somewhere. So say rand next. So somewhere between 30 to about 430. So it's going to generate a number between these two numbers here, and then it's positioned that to the new enemy. Okay, so now we can say my canvas children add new enemy. Okay, so we're dynamically creating the enemy and the bullet for this game. I think that's it for the make enemies function. Now we can work on the actual game's loop. Okay, let's start with this one. Make some space here. So first thing is we're going to assign the player hitbox. So this rect, it's going to say new rect here. Yep. So this rect is going to be linked directly to the player object that we created in the canvas. So say canvas to get left to get the x position of the player. Canvas to get top. Get the y position of the player. Say player dot height. So it's going to be player width first and then height. Okay. Now we're going to reduce 1 from the enemy counter. So say minus equals 1. So the enemy counter is what's going to be used to see how often we should spawn enemies into the scene. Okay, so after that, let's go and set up the 2 labels that we created. So say score text content equals score and plus score. Okay, so with those 2 inside the timer, they will constantly update whenever we add a value to any of them. Okay, so now what we can say here is if enemy counter is below 0, then we'd run the make enemies function here, and then we reset the enemy counter to the limit. Okay, so it's gonna go back to, so right now the limit is set to 50. So first when the game starts, enemy counter will be equal to 100. So as it goes below 0, it'll get reset to 50, and then it'll go down again. So that way we can make sure that there's a stream of enemies coming down towards the player. Let's do the player movement. So if move left is equals true, and canvas to get left, player is still greater than 0. So player is still inside the canvas. So we can say canvas to set left, player left player minus player speed. Okay, so we are still able to move it towards the left of the screen. Now let's do the similar thing to the move right. Okay, and left player say plus 90. So we're going to add a bit more padding to the width of the player, and say if it's still less than application.current domain window low width, we're still inside the window, then we are able to move the player towards the right. So I'm just going to copy that and move that here and add a plus to it. So this way the player can move left or towards the right. Okay, so if I just run this now, let me see if I can actually move it left or right. So there. Okay, so see, okay, so to move the bullets and the enemies, we're going to be using a for each loop to identify the bullet and the enemy, and then we'll run another for each loop to identify the collision between the bullet and the enemy. Okay, so let's do the for each loop. For each for x is say my canvas.children.off type. So what we're interested in to check is rectangles. Rectangles there. Right, now we're going to say if x is rectangle and string say x.tag equals bullet. Okay, and then we can set the canvas.set top of the bullet. So say x canvas.get top. So get the current position of the bullet, and then we're gonna minus 20 from it. Now if I want to try that out now, So as you can see, as soon as the bullets are created, it's being pushed up into the scene. Okay, so one of the things that we do need to do is once the bullets have reached the top of the screen, right, we don't need that bullet anymore because it's not going to come back to do anything for the game. So what we'll do is once it reaches the top, we will remove the bullet from the game. Okay, we'll do that a little bit later on. Okay, so let's make a rect hitbox for the bullet. So say rect, call it bullet hitbox, new rect excel. So instead of this rect, say canvas.get left x canvas.get top x x.width and x.height. Okay, so these are going to be created with each bullet, and then we'll know the exact location, height and width of each of them attached to this hitbox, and then we can use this one to actually hit with the enemy. Under here we're going to say if canvas.get top. So once the bullet has reached a certain point, so let's say for example if you reach like 10 on the top, right, so that's when we technically don't need the bullet anymore. So we're going to say item remover dot add x. Okay, we can add that bullet to the item remover list, and then from there we can remove it completely from the canvas. Okay, we'll do that in a minute. I think let's move the enemies now. So let's get out of this if statement here, and let's make another if statement inside of this loop. So say if x is a rectangle again, string x.tag is equals enemy. Okay, in that case, say canvas.set top, setting the top position of the enemy. So I say x canvas.get top x, and then say plus enemy speed. So in the bullets case, we are deducting -20 from the position, that's why it's moving up. In the enemy's case, we're going to need to move it down, so it's going to add say 10 to the position of the enemies. Okay, so if you were to try this now, so let's see if the enemies actually spawned and come down towards the screen. Okay, there's one there, another one, right, and the images are changing as well. So one of the things to understand about the enemies is that we also can see the enemies going past the line of the gameplay and the gameplay window. So once it goes past a certain point, we also want to add it to the items removal list, because otherwise we're using a lot of memory that's technically not doing anything once the objects have left the scene. Okay, so what we're going to do here is say if say canvas.get top x is greater than by 750, right, to add the x. Okay, although we're adding it to this list, it's not going to remove it from the game just yet, but we'll do that a little bit later on. But also what we want to do is we want to add some stuff to the damage. So we want to add like 10 to the damage. So if each of the enemies that escapes from us will be adding 10, so we also now we need a rect for the enemy. Yes, say enemy hitbox. I can just copy and paste that, it'll be exactly the same because it's inside the if statement. This x is for the enemy and this x here is for the bullet. So we're going to do a different if statement here. So say if player hitbox to intersect with enemy hitbox. So if the player and the enemy actually collide, then item remover to add x. So we're going to add the enemy to the item remover. Also we're going to add 5 damage in this case. to the player. Okay, so 10 damage if it escapes, 5 damage if you hit the spaceship. Okay, so let's see if this actually works for now. So I can shoot bullets, they look nice. So if I hit once, so as you can see right now, because the enemies are not disappearing, the damage is still going on because they have gone past that certain amount. So the damage is basically increasing. So to remove everything from inside this list, we're going to need to run another for each loop outside this one. Okay, so if you go to the last bracket for the for each loop here, let's type in for each. Right, we're looking at rectangles here. Say rectangle, call this one I in item remover. Alright, so any rectangle that is inside the item remover, what we're going to do is we're going to say my canvas dot children dot remove I. Alright, so if you try this out now, so just gonna make this a bit longer to see if the enemies actually go past this line. Okay, so see, as soon as it hits a certain point, it adds that value and then it disappears from the game. Okay, and also if it hits a player, it disappears from there as well. Okay, but we haven't done the hitboxes between the bullet and the enemy just yet. So right now we actually hit 100. We should probably move the label slightly in. When it reaches 100, it kind of goes off screen. Okay, so that's being nicely done. Right, so the reason we created a rect for the bullet here is because we need to run another for each loop inside of this if statement. Okay, so what we're going to say is for each, right, let's say variable y in my canvas dot children dot of type rectangle again. Okay, say if y is rectangle and string x dot tag is equals enemy. Okay, so it's a similar one to the one that we've done here. We're going to create another hitbox for the enemy. So say this one, we're going to name it enemy hit equals new rect. I'm going to copy and paste that again, but in this case, instead of it being x, it's going to be y. Okay, because it's running inside of this for each loop, and inside of this one, what we can do here is we can check if bullet hitbox dot intersect with enemy hit, because that's the one that's available here. See S there. Okay, say item remover dot add x, that's the bullet. Item remover dot add y, that's the enemy inside the bracket. And then lastly, we're going to say score plus plus. So each time we kill an enemy, we'll get a score. Let's try it out. Let's see if I shoot now. Doesn't seem to hit. Made a mistake, yeah. Instead of it saying Y, it says X there. So that's why you can't find the actual tag. Okay, try it again. Okay, there you go. So as you can see, the score updates as well. Okay, so with the work done so far, what we need to do now is we need to check if the damage is up to 100, or if we score up to a certain point, and then we can increase the ratio of how often the enemies are being spawned into the game. So let's take a look at the score one first. I think that's the easiest one to do first. Let's say for example if score is greater than 5, so we killed 5 enemies, right? Then we can set the limit to 20, so now it's gonna spawn enemies more frequently, and also enemy speed is going to be up to 15. We're going to add 5 more pixels to the speed of the enemies. So last bit is the damage. So if we say if the damage is above 99, right, so then we can stop the game timer. Damage text dot content, we're going to say damage to 100. Let's show 100 on there. Foreground equaled brushes dot red, so we want it to be red when the game ends. Show a message box here. This is say, Captain, you have destroyed school alien ships. And also because I meant a new line plus press OK to play again. And this line is going to go up a little bit. Quotation here. So let's say MOO says, and then that way you'll have a title. Okay, so once the game ends, we just want to show a message box, and once the message box shows, what we want to do is we're going to close the current version of the window, and then we'll reopen it again. System diagnostics process start. Okay, so we're going to start a instance of this application. Location, and then we're going to shut down the current version. Okay, so let's try and do that. So let's say for example if I shoot 5 now, okay, just let the damages go up. Okay, so as you can see, as soon as the damages go to 100, it shows a message saying MOO says, Captain, you have destroyed 11 ships, alien ships. Click OK to play again. As soon as I click OK, it closes the current one, and then it opens another window for us here. And so this has been the simple tutorial on how to make a space battle shooter type game. We looked at some of the more fun and fundamental parts of game development, including creating, destroying elements, using tile backgrounds, updating scores and movements. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you on the next one.